Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving straight into the massive, completely unseen forces that shaped the history of the world's most popular video sharing platform. If you've ever wondered how a totally random, chaotic collection of viral clips somehow morphed into this highly structured media ecosystem that literally dictates global culture, well, you are in exactly the right place. Let's get right into it. To really wrap our heads around this evolution, we can't just look at a handful of popular videos, right? We have to look at the data on an absolutely staggering scale. I mean, think about it. Right now, there are over 500 hours of content uploaded every single minute. So to accurately map out the platform's history, researchers couldn't just sit back and watch clips. They had to deploy automated programs to literally crawl the network. That means using software bots to scrape the back-end code of millions of pages, just hunting for the hidden links between them. By doing this, they mapped out over 76 million individual videos and more than 500,000 channels. They were specifically looking at the digital connective tissue, meaning who was liking and favoriting whose content, and tracking this behavior over a span of more than a decade. It's just a colossal amount of data. So how exactly do you track a sprawling, seemingly infinite network from its chaotic start all the way to its modern era? Well, it takes painstaking precision. Researchers actually segmented the platform's timeline into incredibly specific 3-month intervals. By isolating the data quarter by quarter and observing the shared connections, they were able to literally draw a map of digital history. And the patterns that emerge from this, they are absolutely fascinating. Act 1. The birth of YouTube. To really understand the ecosystem, we have to start at the very beginning, tracing the foundational history of the site before it became the absolute media juggernaut we know today. Created by 3 former PayPal employees, Chad Hurley, Steve Chen, and Jawad Karim, the platform actually began with a totally different and honestly pretty hilarious identity. The original concept was a video dating site with the slogan, "Tune in, hook up." Obviously, that idea failed spectacularly and almost immediately, but the underlying video uploading technology they built was just exceptionally smooth. So they smartly dropped the dating angle, and the very first video, a wildly mundane clip called "Me at the Zoo," was uploaded in April 2005. From there, the pivot triggered astronomical growth. The platform grew so fast, streaming 100 million video views a day by July 2006, that it actually strained its own servers. Just think about that wild jump for a second. From a failed dating site in early 2005 to a $1.65 billion Google acquisition just 18 months later. In this early universe, the network naturally formed into small, distinct groups that researchers refer to as clusters. And because the platform was so incredibly new, these clusters were basically the Wild West, highly chaotic, completely unpredictable. You had Cluster 387, which was driven by those early nostalgic viral mega hits. Think Charlie Bit My Finger or The Evolution of Dance, sitting right alongside completely amateur pixelated music remixes. Meanwhile, Cluster 629 was forming around early hip-hop music, legacy news channels like the BBC, and the young, unpolished political broadcasts surrounding the 2008 U.S. presidential election. And then there was Cluster 909, leaning heavily into early internet comedy and those pioneering entertainment groups just figuring out what a vlog even was. Act 2. Mapping the video galaxy. So, what does this invisible network actually look like when we zoom all the way out? When you map out all 76 million videos, it brilliantly illustrates the true galaxy of the network. Every single data point represents an individual video, and the forces pulling them together aren't just random lines of code. They represent actual human behaviors. They are the likes, the favorites, the subscriptions linking one creator to another. Rather than being hopelessly fragmented by language or completely divided by extreme polarization, the data reveals a surprisingly stable, single central core of content. From this dense central spine, there are these beautiful branching filaments stretching outward into the darkness. These filaments represent channels moving toward or away from the core, mapping out more than a decade of shifting collective human culture in one single, breathtaking structure. By isolating these clusters over time, researchers saw how specific genres essentially act like living organisms. We can literally watch them evolving, merging, and splitting as time goes on. For instance, a massive, broad entertainment cluster might suddenly splinter off a smaller subculture filament, say a dedicated, tight-knit network of parkour and urban spelunking channels. Over time, that hyper-specific niche subculture might exist entirely on its own, growing and feeding its specific audience. But eventually, as trends shift, you see that exact same subculture filament slowly bending back inward, folding completely into a larger, more mainstream lifestyle cluster. It's a constant, flowing digital evolution where communities are born, grow, and are ultimately absorbed. Act 3. The two mainstreams. Over time, a fascinating shift occurred. The entire platform naturally bifurcated into two massive, fundamentally distinct streams. When analyzing the data from roughly 2009 onward, researchers found that the content ecosystem split into two dominant streams exhibiting completely different behaviors. On one side, we have the entertainment stream. This stream is fluid, highly reactive, and incredibly prone to splintering into rapid subcultures. Think of it like a splashing river. Music, gaming, and sketch comedy are constantly breaking apart, reinventing themselves, and reassembling in real time. But on the exact opposite side, we have the politics stream. Unlike the chaotic, splashing entertainment side, the political stream is more like a massive, rigid tree trunk. It is remarkably stable, continuous, and deeply anchored by rock-steady connections between long-standing news channels. Crucially, this stable political stream includes vastly different ideologies all coexisting within the exact same structural space. It contains everything from progressive left-wing commentators to conservative right-wing channels, legacy broadcast cable television media, and even state-sponsored networks. Remember, this network structure is generated entirely neutrally based on back-end channel connections, likes and favorites, not on individual political viewpoints. And this is exactly why this matters. Despite massive, intense ideological differences on the surface, the underlying network treats all of this political content as one single unified structural block that persists no matter what the external political climate looks like. Act 4. Code and culture collide. Here is where things get really wild. We need to understand how the platform's underlying code and feature updates directly dictated these massive cultural shifts. You see, the platform didn't just grow organically, it was actively steered by rapid-fire changes in its interface and its code. Back in 2008, interactive video annotations were added, allowing creators to physically link out to other videos on screen, which massively tightened those network clusters. Then in 2010, the platform transitioned away from a classic, nuanced 5-star rating system. They replaced it with a binary thumbs up and thumbs down we know today, subtly forcing viewers into a much more polarized, black and white way of interacting with content. But the absolute most seismic shock to the ecosystem? That happened in March 2012, with a drastic change to the underlying recommendation algorithm. This single algorithm tweak in 2012 triggered a massive chain reaction. The system was updated to prioritize watch time instead of just raw view counts. The platform simply wanted to keep you on the site for as many minutes as possible. And because of this one invisible code tweak, the human stakes were massive. Incredible, high-effort, short-form sketch comedy channels and independent animators suddenly lost their livelihoods. They just couldn't compete in a watch time metric. Meanwhile, channels producing completely unedited, 30-minute-long Let's Play gaming videos, especially those focusing on games like Minecraft, exploded in popularity. They completely dominated an entirely new network cluster, transforming the culture of the platform practically overnight. Act 5. The real-world impact. But it wasn't just internal code dictating the digital culture. The physical world was hitting back, causing massive shockwaves across the entire network. When we look closely at the timeline of these network clusters, we see glaring disruptions caused by physical world events. The U.S. presidential elections in 2008 and 2012 drove massive traffic surges and physically reorganized the political streams. But look at mid-2015, the announcement of political candidates who heavily utilized late-night TV talk shows as campaign platforms actually destabilized the massive entertainment clusters. Why does that matter? Because politicians going on comedy shows forced the rigid political stream and the historically chaotic entertainment stream to suddenly crash into each other, violently blurring the lines between pop culture and politics and forcing channels to rapidly reorganize their connections. Perhaps the most striking example of real-world impact is the 2013 Chelyabinsk meteor event. Usually, specific language markets, like the Russian language cluster and the English language cluster, operate completely independently. They sit like separate, isolated islands in the digital ocean. But when that massive meteor struck Russia, and a sudden influx of crazy, unbelievable dashcam footage flooded the internet, it caused a huge surge of global video sharing. This external, physical space rock literally forged a massive digital bridge, instantly linking the usually isolated Russian and English-speaking network clusters together in real time. For a brief moment, the world was structurally united by a meteor. All of this incredible back-end data proves something absolutely vital. The platform isn't just a static database or a passive video host. It is a living, breathing social ecosystem, an organism constantly shifting, fragmenting, and healing in direct response to every tiny internal code tweak from a software engineer and every major external event happening in our physical world. Which leaves us with one final provocative thought to walk away with. If a single, invisible code tweak in 2012 could inadvertently destroy sketch comedy and build entire long-form gaming empires overnight, what unseen digital forces are actively shaping the reality, the news, and the culture you're consuming today? Thanks for joining me for this explainer. Keep questioning the architecture behind your screen.